Hello everybody and welcome to episode 53 of the Wildlife Photography Q&A. Now I say episode 53, we are having some technical difficulties with episode 52 just from a sound point of view, but stay tuned, it will be coming up in the next coming days. First of all, before we get to the questions, it's been quite an exciting week for us at Wildlife. If you guys have been following along, you would have seen change has been like a big word that we've been putting out there on social media time and time again. And you would have also seen we've got a new website as well as a new logo. Okay, so pretty soon these logos that we have on, right, they're going to be a thing of the past, and it's a brand new logo, brand new design. So very exciting times for us. Now, for your questions, I wanted to get someone from the office in to just so you can get to know different personalities and also so they can answer some of the questions. But if you look to my right, it's everyone's basically heads down, behind computers, behind paperwork and Excel spreadsheets, a lot of things happening behind the scenes. So I'm going to be doing this episode by myself. And yeah, thanks for sending all of your questions. Let's get straight into it.
Abdul Hussein asked, is the Sony A6100 a great camera to start with?
All right, the short answer for that is yes. And the reason for me saying yes is, you know, if you can afford it and it can take photos, then it's a good camera to start. I don't think there's any photographer out there that started off with the latest and greatest camera out there. And I think it's maybe something that we sort of pay too much attention to is, getting the latest camera gear and the best lenses and things that's available. I think one thing that you've got in your favor is that it is a mirrorless camera, all right? And I do think, that is where the attention is at the moment. If you're buying camera gear right from scratch, then mirrorless is definitely the way to go. I've had a bit of a look at the camera itself that you're talking about, and I really do think it's got everything that you possibly need. It's like a 24 megapixel camera, and I would rather say to you then, instead of spending money on more camera gear and things like that, rather get to know your camera as best as you possibly can. Do a few courses, really understand how shutter speed, aperture and ISO, how that all gets together, and then from there you can really sort of maximize the use out of your camera, and then from there look at upgrading your camera at a later stage. It obviously all depends on what you're going to use your camera for. And for me personally, doing wildlife 98% of the time, I generally like photographing in low light, so there'll be two things I'll be looking for if I had to buy a camera. So a camera that can deal with high ISOs, right? Because when you're photographing wildlife, especially predators, more often than not, they'll generally be active early mornings, late evenings, right? So you'll be shooting in low light. So that'll be something to consider. And then also something that has a little bit of a higher frame rate, not so you can burst 1,000 images, but just when you have that action scene in front of you, that you do have that frame rate on your side. So have a look, see what you want to specialize in from a photographic point of view, but yeah, really get to know your camera, and if we can help in any way, please let us know.
Hidasaka asked, do you work on a payroll or seek for short-term contracts? Which one is convenient?
Okay, so I presume you're talking about from let's take it from a guiding point of view, right? So you can get permanently employed at a lodge, or you can do it as a freelance basis, right? So, working at, say, for example, take Madagascar Game Reserve, there's about 31 lodges there. You can be a relief guide and guide at like various different lodges, or you can be based at one particular camp. Generally, from a freelance point of view, it's a tough one, or like short-term contracts, as you put it. I think definitely you could make more money from a short-term contract point of view, if you're busy. But the problem is, if there's no business, you don't get any income at all. Right? So take the same thing from a photographic safari point of view. If you're a freelance guide working for a few different companies, yes, when you've got safaris and when you're hosting those trips, you might make a bit more money. I'm not too sure, but you don't have that stability. So especially in South Africa, if you're looking at things like getting home loans or loans for cars and things, if you don't have that fixed set income, banks are sort of quite hesitant to give out loans, if that makes sense. I hope that's the question you were asking, but for me, long term, and that's what I enjoy about Wildeye as well. We've got everyone permanently employed, you're part of a team, you're part of a structure, and yeah, just works.
Judy Van Zyl asked, is it worthwhile taking a macro along to Madagascar? Hashtag asking for a friend.
Okay, so that's cool. Nice to get a question from within the office from Judy. And it's actually something that I've been discussing with her over the last few months. So September this year, I was supposed to go to Madagascar to go photograph lemurs and chameleons and all the wonderful things that Madagascar has to offer. And I definitely think that macro lens is definitely something that can come in very, very handy in Madagascar. It lends itself to that. It's if you look at all the different frogs and lizards and even like close-up textures of chameleons, there definitely is room for a macro lens. I haven't been to a lot of the forest in Madagascar. I've been sort of done more the beach side of it. But speaking to Gerry, who's hosted that safari before, and just looking at some of the images coming out of there, 100% a macro lens will be going with me. And hopefully next year, September, if you haven't been to Madagascar, jump along. It'll be great to have you there.
Ada Guaya asked, on the winner of the Masai Mara photo competition, was it your favorite? And if not, which one and why?
All right, so thank you so much for that question. And I think for the first time in a very, very, very long time, it actually was my favorite. I haven't sort of been agreeing with a lot of the competition winners over, various competitions actually, just I think personal taste. But that image definitely is, I think, without a doubt, one of my favorites. I think it's quite a unique image in the rain. And it's also, there's no funny business with it. I think there's been a lot of weird stuff going on, a lot of double exposures and overlaying animals over each other, and then it starts getting, I understand the creative part of it, but for pure wildlife photography, I don't know, it doesn't appeal to me at all. So this particular image I really, really enjoy. I must say there were quite a few others. I think there was one that Graham Wood took of cheetahs going up a tree, wide angle with moody skies. For me, that is also something that I really enjoyed. But well done to the winner. I completely forgot his name, but I did see the interview. Well done, amazing image, and it really does make me miss the Masai Mara a lot.
Three Waves Photo said, as a pro, does the difference from 400mm to 600mm really matter that much? Sony lenses.
Okay, so for this one, I think it depends, where you are and what you're photographing. If you, both lenses are amazing. I was lucky enough to use both of them, I think it was last year at some stage. It very much depends on the destination. I think if you're going a place like East Africa, I really do like the 600. But I think it's only really Serengeti and the Masai Mara, and maybe just chatting to Gerry, maybe a place like Svalbard where you have things a little bit further away, it could come in handy. But I think for other destinations, the 400 really sort of works really, really well. I think maybe the one advantage that you're going to have with the 400 is the low light capabilities. But I think from an image quality point of view, if you have to put two images next to each other and say, one was photographed with the 400 and one with the 600, I don't think you'll be able to tell the difference. Both amazing lenses. I think horses for courses, just depending on where you go.
And Damon Oskin said, what would be your best piece of advice for shooting in low light and embracing overcast conditions?
Right, Damon, thank you so much for your question, and it's quite an interesting one. Funny enough, I understand everyone's obsession with golden light and all of that, but to be honest with you, late morning, early afternoon, those overcast conditions are actually beautiful to photograph in. You don't have those highlights and shadows to worry about. So it actually prolongs your photographic time as such. If you have clear skies in summer, by 8 o'clock, your your photographic sort of opportunities are pretty much done, unless you're going for like high key kind of images. But otherwise, low light, I really enjoy photographing during that time. It gives you time to get a little bit creative. You know, your shutter speed is going to be really slow, so you can get really creative with your panning images. So my advice with that will be is don't fight it. You know, don't fight that sort of low light scenario unless it's something that you haven't photographed before. You know, we always joke, if it's a pangolin crossing the road and it's your first pangolin, then of course don't pan it. You know, then fight with the low light as much as you have to be able to bank those images, but use it to your advantage and create something different. You know, a lot of the times I think we create the same stuff over and over again. And with the low light, if you've photographed elephants or lions, whatever it may be, in low light you've really got the opportunity to go really slow and get creative with it. So that'll be my advice. Yeah, don't fight it during the late evening hours, and sort of late morning or early afternoon, maximize those overcast conditions and use it to your advantage. Hey guys, thank you so much for your questions. Really appreciate it. That's a wrap for episode 53. Short and sweet. Next week is going to be our last episode for 2020. Gerry and I will be hosting it together. And then from next year, we're going to put a whole brand new spin on this wildlife photography Q&A, which we can't wait to share with you guys. But that's it for me for this week. Thank you for watching and thank you for your questions. We look forward to catching up with you next week.